My cat's cleaning himself in the background, don't mind that. Hello! Welcome back to the channel if you already know who I am. If you don't, welcome. Hi, I'm Zara. And I have Tourette's. I haven't done an informative, just sit down, chatty, here's some facts about Tourette's kind of video for a long time. So this is long overdue. I am going to talk about, specifically kind of college, high school, because that's where I'm at. I'm just finishing college. But exams with Tourette's, how to do exams with tics, my tips, how I got through my exams, and basically just how I got through college, how I got through high school with my tics, especially since they got really, really bad. I just want to talk about my experience with that, what I've learnt from it, and my tips for passing your exams with tics, how to navigate that whole thing, because it's a pain in the ass, I know. Right, I have just made a little list of my 10 top tips, my 10 steps to getting through exams with tics. Number 1, I've named this section diagnosis, but obviously this is a bit subjective. Is that a word? This is obviously not accessible to all people, but having a diagnosis for whatever you're struggling with, whether it's tics, whether you have Tourette's, whether you just have anxiety, anxiety is still very valid, or anything else, ADHD, autism, anything that affects your exams or your ability to function in school, make sure that if you can, you get a diagnosis, because this makes it so much easier to get things like extra time in exams or rest breaks, like the legal stuff that they have to submit to the exam board. If you have a diagnosis, you can just apply for it and you should be able to get it. If you don't have a diagnosis, you can still get help, and you still should do all of these things in this list, but it does make it easier if you have doctor's notes, letters explaining it, because they don't have to go through the whole proving process. It does make it a lot more simple, but obviously I know not everyone has access to a diagnosis and it's hard, so if you don't have one, don't panic, it's fine, you can still get through. Tip number 2 is set up a meeting with your teachers. Whether it's sending an email or getting your parents to email, your parents going in, you going in, whatever it is, set up a meeting with your teachers and tell them what's going on. The earliest you can open up about what's going on, what you're struggling with, the quicker you can get something in place to help you work better and help your exam process easier, working in classes easier. It can't get fixed if you don't speak up about it. So please, email is probably the easiest way to do it, I'd say. That's what I did most of the time. Or I got my mum to email and then we set up a meeting between me, my mum, the disability support staff in my school and my form teachers, and then I did actually have a meeting with all of my subject teachers where I explained to them what was going on. It helps. It definitely does. It helped them understand. I got to tell them exactly what was going on and exactly what I needed to help me function better, and they were really helpful. We got it sorted and pretty much they put in place whatever I needed in order to function better, which is very lucky in my case. It can be a struggle sometimes. Setting up a meeting and telling them what's going on is the first step in getting things sorted, laying out a plan. I'd highly suggest talking to your parents about it. Obviously this can be really intimidating, and I know it's really hard to do the initial reaching out and saying this is going on. It's scary, but please, it is the only way. It's not the only way, there's always other ways, but it's probably the easiest way to get into the school and tell everybody what's going on, because your parents could take you to the doctor, you could get a doctor's note. That can also help with talking to the school because it proves that there is medically something going on. After you have set up your meeting or you've spoken to the teachers, my 3rd tip is to set up an educational health and care plan. I think that's what it's called. An EHCP. I'm gonna put a link in the description and I'll probably put on the screen here what I mean. But I set one of these up and it literally changed everything. It's very, very helpful. I know this is definitely a thing in UK schools. I'm British, so it might change from country to country, but pretty much everywhere they will have a care plan system within the school where if you've got a disability or something that is hindering your ability to work in your class, you can create this care plan that basically is a fact file of everything you're going through and what you need to succeed. I did my one about Tourette's 4 years ago, So I can't really remember the process, if I'm honest. But from what I can remember, I just met up with the support worker and we went through my diagnosis, what I was struggling with, the things that were hard, the things I needed, and what we wanted to do for exams, like what would help me, so that we knew what to apply for with the exam board. We talked about what would happen if I had writing tics or my tics were scribbling and I couldn't write on a page during my exam, and for that we set up that I could use a laptop or I could have someone scribe for me. We talked about what would happen if my tics were really bad on the day and I just couldn't complete an exam. And we also set up things like me being able to leave classrooms and leave exams if my tics got really bad and it was all too much. I would be able to leave. I could either have a rest break or I could just postpone my exam, which was so helpful. I had to do this a lot for my GCSEs. 3 years ago, my tics were pretty horrendous. It was kind of controlling my whole life. They're definitely still bad at times now, and I still tic every day, but back then they dictated everything I did. So exams were pretty much impossible. I'd say probably over 80% of my exams got postponed because I had to walk out of it. I had to stop because my tics were just so interruptive that I couldn't even complete the exam. But having that educational healthcare plan in place meant that all my teachers could go into this plan and they could see exactly what I needed, and everyone was aware of my situation, and it was all documented, which made it a lot easier for putting all these things in place. Point number 4 kind of links with the other one, but it's exam setup and getting things like extra time, a separate room, rest breaks, if you need a scribe, if you can't write, if your tics are really bad and you struggle to write on paper, you could type. There's so many things that you can apply for, and I think you do need a diagnosis for most of the things that significantly change the process. Like extra time, you have to provide a diagnosis of why you'd need that, but I have pretty much all the accommodations that you can get because my health can get pretty bad sometimes. So I have extra time because it takes me a lot longer to write and concentrate when I'm ticking or I'm having absence seizures. Things like that really interrupt my flow of working, so it takes me longer to do things than other people, even though intellectually I'm completely fine. Another thing that I found completely life-changing, having a separate room. There is absolutely no way I could complete an exam in an exam hall with like 300 other students in the complete silence. It's never gonna happen. Other people with tics will sympathize with me here. It's impossible. I can't keep quiet and I would just distract everyone else. It would be stressful for me. The last time I did an exam in hall was year 9, so that would have been 5 years ago. Around a year before I got my Tourette's diagnosis. And I remember this was before my tics were like a big thing and came out, but because of the stress of it, I couldn't stop sniffing and doing this squeaking noise. And I didn't know they were tics at the time. I didn't know it was Tourette's here, but I had to leave that exam because I couldn't stay quiet because I was so anxious, and I thought it was just this weird thing that I was doing. But yeah, even if you're at that point, I got a separate room and I didn't have a diagnosis, so it is possible to get accommodations with whatever diagnosis you have, whether you do, whether you don't, whether you're in the process of doing. You can get help if you just ask for it and you plan for it. Tip number 5 also goes with the exam setup, is rest breaks. This is one of my accommodations, so with the exam board I have legal rest breaks. Like I'm allowed to pause my exams to let my tics out, go and have a break, walk it off, and then come back and resume my paper. And this has been really, really, really helpful. I would recommend this because it's not something that people really think of when you think of exam accommodations. People usually think of like typing or having a different room, but rest breaks really make a difference. I like to split my exams up because they're usually 2 hours in English. I've got 3 of these in the next couple of weeks. In the next month I've got to sit 3 2-hour papers, but because of my extra time it's 2.5 hours, and then I add my rest breaks on, so I'm sitting a paper that's about 3 hours long. It's a long time, so I break it up with rest breaks and I go and let all my tics out, take a walk around the block, and it just lets me reset myself so I don't get too cramped up in it, because the more stressed and the more cramped up I get, the more my tics are going to come out. They're going to get worse. So having things like this definitely helps to regulate it throughout the process. Tip number 6 is headphones. Obviously, if you've seen any Tourette's content or any tips, you know that music really helps tics. Although I don't think you'd be allowed this in an official GCSE or A-level exam. You can't wear headphones because obviously you could be listening to the answers and it could be cheating. I had it in my GCSE exam actually, but I don't think I'm allowed it in my A-levels, is music. In practice papers, in classes, while revising, which all help you pass exams, I highly recommend playing music, whatever music you can concentrate to, whether it's lo-fi. I used to listen to classical piano music because I play piano, I find it relaxing. I used to listen to that while doing my exams and it was really helpful. It literally cut my tics in half by just playing it quietly in the background. And the way we got around it with not being a cheating hazard was I played it out loud from the school computer in the room, because I was in a room completely by myself. I wasn't just in a smaller one with other people that had extra time and stuff. I was actually in a completely separate room. So we played it out loud and it was quite nice. Could maybe suggest that, but if that's not allowed, which I know it isn't in a lot of situations, I'd highly recommend using headphones and music and stuff while revising, because it'll help you cram in as much information as you can, which will help you in the final exams. Tip number 7 is fidget toys. I will always recommend this. I think everybody does. It really helps just to focus my brain in, and it keeps my hands busy, because when I'm holding a pen or I'm typing, a lot of the time my hands start ticking because I'm using them so much. So by having one of them do something, having something like a chew toy in my mouth, like a chew necklace, it keeps me busy while I'm doing something, which helps me concentrate. I find that very helpful. I take squishies and I have a little roller thing that I recently got. This is my favourite fidget toy at the minute, which I've been using for exams. It's an Ono roller. I've got the junior because I have quite small hands and I find that this fits me a lot better. I really like this. It's really smooth and it's quiet as well. Some fidget toys can be a bit clacky, like a bit clunky. The ones that, like the fidget cubes, I find that they're quite noisy, and in something like a quiet exam it feels too obnoxious and I don't like it. So I love this one. This has quickly become my favourite toy. It's really discreet, so that is a must for me. You'll have to pass this with the exam board and put this in your care plan and just talk it through with your teachers, but I don't see a reason why you can't use fidget toys in exams, because I do. I have them as a tool to help me, and that has always been a big part of me being successful in both classrooms, revising, and while actually sitting my exams. I quite often just fiddle with my necklace, whatever it is. A spinny fidget ring, like one of the spinner ones. Even if it's not a spinny ring, just spinning a normal ring around my finger really helps. That's a great fidget, which isn't even a fidget, it just is a normal piece of jewellery. Whatever it is, doing something like that really helps with distracting your tics. Tip number 8 is track your triggers. Make sure you're on top of things that trigger your tics, because the more you trigger them, the worse they're going to be in exams. Obviously, the pressure and stress of an exam does trigger tics anyway, so it's normal for tics to be a lot more active during times where you've got a lot of pressure on you. Keep on top of things like different foods that might trigger your tics, or whether you're having enough sleep, whether you've got any friendship stress or anything like that. Like this month, I'm being so careful with what I'm doing. I'm trying not to trigger my tics. I'm trying to pace myself, not overload my days. I know that if I have a really stressful day, I'll probably need like 3 to 4 days to recover from that, and that will impact my revision. That will make me not do as well in the exam that's coming up. So I'm trying to pace myself. I'm trying to not eat anything like super sugary sweets, things like that that are going to trigger my tics before an exam. If I ate like a whole bag of Tang Sticks before I went into an exam, I would probably have a tic attack. So I'm just not going to do things like that. I'm just keeping that in mind. I'm trying to get good sleep because tiredness is a big trigger for me. And I'm not watching anything that could trigger my tics. I'm not watching any other content with people ticking, because for me personally that can be a trigger if someone is ticking a lot in content. I'm trying not to trigger any of my old tics, because the more I'm ticking, the harder it's going to be. But yeah, obviously you can't really control it, but you can manage triggers, so just keep that in mind. Tip number 9? Is that 9? Tip number 9, practice, practice, practice. You probably don't want to hear it, but the more you do exams, the better you will get at it. The more comfortable you are in a situation, the more times you've done it, the more used to it you are, the less you're gonna have that stress that's like oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? This is a really weird, uncomfortable setting. The more you practice it, the better you will get in that situation, and the better you will be at not getting as stressed, the better you'll be at controlling your emotions, which will control your tics. The more you do exams, the more you're used to it, basically. So practice, do lots of practice papers, practice being in that setting. If you're going to be in a specific room with a specific timing, with a specific person, whatever your exam regulations will be, practice in those settings so that it's not a surprise when you do your exam. I do all my exams in the exact same settings on the laptop that I will be doing it on in my exam, so that I've been doing it for months. It's not any different. And then you can treat your exam as just another one of those practices, and then I'm least stressed about it. That is a good tip for anyone. But yes, practice makes perfect. No, if you think practice makes perfect, what you should actually be thinking is practice makes progress. My last tip, tip number 10, is kind of self-explanatory but also a little bit difficult. Easier said than done. Stay calm. It's really hard to do, I know. I get very stressed very easily. I get very quickly overwhelmed. I'm a person who literally needs to sit and like meditate to try and not panic every time something stressful comes up. But I know exams are stressful. I know you're worrying whether you're going to be able to do it, whether you're going to get a good grade, whether your tics are going to let you do it, what your health's going to be like. There's a lot of stresses, there's a lot of worry, and I hate exams because there's so much riding on like 1-2 hour space of like cramming information down on a piece of paper or in a Word document. It's not really fair, I know. It doesn't suit all of us, but stay calm. Just do the best that you can do, and that is enough. You are enough. Your best is the best you can do, and you should be proud of whatever you do. Even if you failed all your exams, you would still have tried. You would have done your best, and if your health makes it so that you can't sit the usual curriculum, you can't sit the exams and do well in them because your health just really won't allow it, that is okay. There are other things you can do. You can resit them. It is not the end of the world. Obviously, you want to do well, you want to get the best grades you can to give you the best opportunities and so it can look good on your CV, you know. But don't put too much pressure on yourself. It isn't the end of the world if you don't get an A, if you don't get the top grade or the one that you wanted. As long as you try your hardest, you can be proud of what you have done. Academic grades are not everything, and there's a lot more to life than just getting good grades, especially when it comes to people with disabilities, people with tics, neurodivergent people. We're often very creative people, and it doesn't always come with academic ability. It doesn't always come with being good at sitting exams, and that's okay. We all work in different ways. I don't work very well in exams, but hopefully I'll get good grades. Hopefully all my work the past 2 years will pay off, and hopefully it doesn't go down the drain in the 6 hour of exams that I have. 8 hours of my life defines the past 2 years. It's crazy, it doesn't feel fair, but I'm gonna try my hardest. It's gonna be okay. If my tics act up, I'll do my best, and if I really can't do it, I can always resit it. It's okay. It isn't the end of the world, and it won't be for you either. I hope that's a helpful video and that it can give you some insight into what exams look like with tics, what exams can be with tics, how you can improve, what you can do to help you pass and help you get the best grades you can, and also stay the safest you can, because we don't want people's health to be triggered. Tics can be dangerous, they can be hurtful. Reducing your triggers and doing these things to make it easier when exams do come helps everybody, and I hope that can help you too. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the sit down chatty video. I've enjoyed filming it. I'm gonna film a lot more like this. If you've got any questions, any videos you want me to do, any topics you want me to cover, put them in the description. Good luck to everybody sitting exams. Good luck to me. I think I'll be okay. It's gonna be fine. I've got this. You've got this. We've all got this. We can do it. I believe in you, and you are not alone. There are always people who can relate to you. There are always people who will be willing to listen, and this is a safe space. So if you're struggling, feel free to join my Discord server. There's a lot of people in there who are willing to help, or just to chat to if you want to make friends. Comment down below. There's lots of lovely people you can chat to. Maybe there's some advice I can give you, or someone else with Tourette's or tics or in a similar situation can give you. Reach out. I hope that was informative, I hope it was helpful, and I hope you have a lovely day. All my links are down in the description if you want to follow me elsewhere, if you want to listen to my music, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content. Have a lovely day. Bye.